So in my second attempt, I had decided to take just 3 months off after my graduation and not work because I thought it would be a better way of preparing. And in 2020 CAT, I ended up scoring even less. So I had an 87 percentile that year. So after that, I was very dejected because I did not have a job in hand. I had let go of Duke. So I did not have an immediate role model. That made me believe that maybe it is very difficult for people from tier two colleges of sorts to get into ABC. But later on, I realized that it is just a myth.
Hello everyone, today we have with us Nishtha. She scored 99.13 percentile in CAT 2022 and she converted IIM Bangalore, Calcutta, Kozhikode, Lucknow, FMS Delhi, SPJMR Mumbai and XLRI. And she's going to join IIM Bangalore soon. Coming to her educational background, she pursued BA Economics Honours from Delhi University and after that she worked at Social Alpha for 2 years. Today she is with us to share her CAT preparation journey, also how she converted all the IIM calls. So hi Nishtha, welcome to Krakow interview series and yeah, congrats on IIM Bangalore convert.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So yeah, so firstly let's discuss about your MBA journey. So when you decided to pursue MBA and then how did you go on to prepare for CAT?
Okay. So I was always very interested in startups and I wanted to start my own thing. So I knew that higher education in business management would definitely be helpful. But MBA was not always my first plan. I wanted to pursue MIM and I had applied to some foreign universities. I also got into Duke University's Fuqua School of Business and I got a $10,000 scholarship. But
Okay.
unfortunately, it was the COVID year and the program became hybrid. So I decided on trying again in the subsequent attempts and I let that offer go. I reapplied and I didn't make it. So
Oh, okay.
I had taken CAT in my first attempt just as a backup. I hadn't prepared very seriously. It was more of a fallback plan. I still converted some baby IIMs and I scored a very meager 88 percentile. And I thought that people scoring anything above 95 were geniuses. And that myth was shattered later on. So in my second attempt, I had decided to take just 3 months off after my graduation and not work because I thought it would be a better way of preparing. And in 2020 CAT, I ended up scoring even less. Yeah. So I had an 87 percentile that year. So after that, I was very dejected because I did not have a job in hand. I had let go of Duke. So I decided to take up a full time job and I started working in January 21. And with the support of my friends and my colleagues, I understood that maybe work experience is better before one decides to go for an MBA. And that has turned out to be a blessing in disguise, I would say. So after working for almost 10 months, it was almost CAT time. And I was very well prepared this time. I had all the resources in place. I had taken around 30 mocks. And I was confident that I would get into at least IIM Lucknow, Kozhikode, or Indore, LKI. But somehow that also didn't happen. I had a 98 percentile in VARC and 96 in quant. But to my great dismay, I had only 59 in DILR. So despite an overall of 96.3, I didn't get any calls from the IIM, which was very heartbreaking because I thought this time I had given it all. So finally, I had converted XLRI Jamshedpur's HRM program, but I was more inclined towards finance and strategy. So with a very heavy heart, I let that go. It was a huge risk, but I had still not imagined that I could make it to ABC. So it came as a pleasant surprise, and I finally got a 99 percentile. So I took coaching's material and I made sure that I solved all of the questions. So there were around 10 booklets across quantitative ability, VARC, and LRDI. So I made sure that I solved them all and that too in a timed manner because anybody can solve CAT questions if there is unlimited time. The real challenge is to do it in a timed manner. I used the free daily targets for some quant topics. I had set the email notifications, so I used to get them every day. I couldn't do all of them, but whenever there was a weak suit, especially in algebra or time, speed, distance questions, I used to solve them very diligently because I knew that there are a lot of questions, at least three or four of them every year. So I wanted to make sure I attempted at least two of them. And that's why I relied a lot on the daily targets. And I had taken some previous year papers in the form of mocks from CrackQ. I used some self-paced courses to improve my VARC. And I think if somebody is struggling with a section and does not have the time to attend coaching due to their work schedule, so it's better to pick up any kind of recorded lectures or self-paced courses because they can be, used at any point in time if you're free at night or if you're free early morning. And you can also join some study groups. Like I found some very helpful resources on TrackQ's Telegram channel. I found a lot of friends also, and we used to have a very healthy competition after every mock. So we used to discuss our scores and we used to help each other with doubts, and also just track where are we headed, who is doing better, and that competition actually helped all of us get good IIM.
Wonderful. It's quite motivating how you improved from your previous percentiles. So you said you got a 59 percentile in LRDI section. How did you improve in that section? So what changes did you make to your preparation this time? And what mistakes did you do earlier?
I think it's a very unpredictable section. So sometimes there are unconventional sets, and for that, what is important is practice and a good knowledge of the concept. So the core concepts remain the same, like analyzing the data, understanding Venn diagrams, understanding how to interpret bar graphs, spider charts. So this time I made sure that I was familiar with all the standard concepts, and I wanted to solve all the past CAT papers at least 2 to 3 times so that I could identify sets the moment I read them. So I solved all the CAT papers from CAT 17 to CAT 21, and after that I also focused on mock. So I took around 30 full length mocks and I made sure that I revised the sets, like solving them after 2 weeks. And that gave me a lot of confidence. So when the final CAT day came, I knew that these sets were familiar and I could solve at least two of them. So it was my weak suit, so I knew that I wouldn't be able to do a lot of them.
Yeah,
So I only wanted to firstly cross the cutoff. That was 15 marks, one set,
right.
and luckily I was able to do one more set. So two sets and a 99 is yours. To talk about my fourth attempt, I started preparing for it in June when I had that realization. So finally, I decided not to repeat the coaching's material again because my basics were in place. All I needed to do was time practice. So I took some test series and I tried solving the topic test for each topic. And after that, I realized that maybe this is not a very wise approach because I already know those basics, so I should move to sectional tests. So, after discussing with a lot of seniors, I designed my own strategy that I had to solve just two mocks for the first 2 months of my preparation. And going forward, I wanted to do a mock every weekend. So, my strategy was simple. In the first 2 months of my preparation, I did just two mocks a month and I did sectionals every week for every section. So, three section tests per week, and then I followed a backward approach during the analysis. Whichever topics I was lacking in, I did the topic test for those topics. So by the time I hit October, I had solved around 20 full length mocks, and my scores were extremely fluctuating. So I don't think every 99 percentiler has a linear journey. So sometimes I would not even make it to the 90th percentile mark, but I was pretty sure that if one keeps practicing and remains consistent, so I also solved a daily test series. Like every day for 10 minutes, there was a test. For VRC, there was one passage every day. For DILR, one set and 5 questions for quant. So if I was not in the mood to study someday, then I just did this. And it ensured that I was consistent with my preparation. And because of that consistency, there was a certain momentum which I never lost. So I would say that even if you study for 10 minutes one day, just don't give that up. Uh, Take breaks, but make sure that you are always on track.
Excellent. So you said this was your fourth attempt at CAT. This time you ended up clearing all the sectional cutoffs and you scored a very good percentile also overall. And you told that you have quit your job around October to prepare for CAT. Let's say you could not clear the CAT in this attempt also, in your fourth attempt, you also quit your job. What would you have done? Like, so what was your backup plan in case CAT didn't go well? So what was that? What was your plan B?
So it was a very difficult decision to quit a well-paying job. That too when I had only joined it 4 months back. So it was a leap of faith. I realized that I would not be able to manage work from office with full-time CAT preparation. It was a trade-off. I decided to choose CAT. But it's often said that CAT is a matter of life and death. And if you make it like that, then it's almost always the losing end. So I decided that I will attempt it with a very calm head. In case it doesn't work out, I'll go back to the workforce. So my firm had told me that they would be happy to take me back. And even
Oh,
if that
that's
didn't
great.
happen, I was sure that I had the skills to find another job. So I did not make it a matter of life and death. Instead, I was sure that if the fourth attempt didn't work out, this would be my final attempt. I would probably continue working for some more years and later on try a foreign MBA. I was sorted that.
Right. And you also had some good backup plans in case this didn't work out. Right. So, and also I think that's the reason why it worked out, because you were not too tensed about it. Right. Wonderful. All right. Now let's move on to your interview preparation. As we discussed in the beginning, you have converted almost all the B school calls that you have received. And so how did you prepare for each stage of these interviews? And
Okay.
ultimately, how was the interview experience of IIM Bangalore particularly?
Okay. So I had my CAT results in the final week of December. So I had a lot of time on my plate. I knew that since I was working from the last 2 years, I did not remember a lot of academic content. So I needed to revise that since it is asked very frequently in interviews. So I started with the basics of economics and finance right from December end. And I did most of my preparation on my own. So I started reading newspapers very often because I wanted to stay up to date with all the major headlines and news, especially about global markets or what is happening in India's democracy, because these questions are asked. So apart from that, I also wanted to enroll in some mock series so that somebody could take my interviews and point out my flaws. For that, I joined a free community uh, started by IIM ABC alumni, and that community was very helpful because there were around 30 to 40 mentors. Each of them added their own unique expertise. Some of them told us how to prepare for finance. Some of them told us how to polish our communication skills. So overall, I appeared for around 5 to 10 mock interviews before I had my first original interview. So my first interview was that of MDI. It was an online interview, so I was very comfortable. I'm Code was my first offline interview, and it was a debacle, I would say, because I got very nervous. It was a stress interview. So they asked me a lot about geography, a lot about concepts that I had never heard in economics. But later on, I realized that it's just a stress test. They're not trying to test just your knowledge, but also your composure, how calm you can stay in the face of adversity. So why I ended up converting this call, I would say, is because I was very calm throughout. Coming to IIM Bangalore, so by then I had already appeared for like 10 mock interviews and 5 original interviews, and it was one of my last IIM interviews. So I was not afraid. I knew what probably could be tested. It was a very unique experience at the India Habitat Center on the 2nd of March. So I was the last on my panel, and that's a huge advantage because all the other students had shared their experiences with me. So I got a sense of how the panelists were and what kind of questions they were asking. So this was one of the best interviews I have ever had. It encompassed everything on my profile. It was entirely SOP driven. So they had read my forms very carefully. So if anybody is targeting IIM Bangalore, they should write a really creative SOP and try to drive it away from the topics they don't want to talk about. So when I entered, they asked me if some other student had told me about the question, and somebody had been asked the puzzle. So I mentioned that, and I did not realize they would ask me to solve the same puzzle. So I had to solve a complicated mathematical puzzle. They were not getting convinced easily, so I had to make multiple attempts. And finally, they got convinced with my solution. After that, we moved on to a little bit of work X. They tried to ask me why venture capital, and they were also giving me more options. Like, why not product management? You want to be an entrepreneur someday, then maybe product management is more closely related. They were just trying to test if I was aware about different fields and if I had considered alternative options. So it was more of a discussion and not really an interrogation as people suppose it to be. The panelists were really friendly. They also laughed and joked at different things. Apart from that, they also asked me about the current affairs, and I talked about the Turkey issue, and they were not really convinced. So I thought maybe that could be a loose end of my interview, but it just turned out to be one of the points that I missed out on. So this is an advice I would like to give to other aspirants, that you may not know everything, and that is okay, but try to be confident throughout, so that whatever you know, they can assess you based on that. So they asked me a very interesting question that what is a type 1 error? So I defined that. And then they asked me, what is the probability of IIM Bangalore committing type 1 error in your selection? So somehow I was so confident in that moment, I emphatically said it's zero. And then they all started laughing. So uh, it was a very light-hearted interview, and they were just trying to understand my motivation behind an MBA and if I was clear about my career goals. They also asked me a few questions about academics, but they did not intend to grill me on that. They just wanted to see if I was well read. So it was a very exciting interview. It went on for about 40-45 minutes. And I wanted the
Okay.
conversation to keep going. Two of them
Okay.
were professors, and one of them was an alumnus of IIM Bangalore.
So you prepared very well for the interviews, and also you have handled the stress in the interview quite well. All right. Yeah. Now you said you graduated from Shivaji College. So many students have this misconception that when they don't pursue their undergraduation from reputed institutes such as IITs or top colleges, they might not really make it into IIM ABC. So were you worried about that at any point of time during interview preparation or while the results are yet to come? So were you worried about your undergraduation college while preparing for the interviews?
I was not worried about that. I just did not have enough role models so that I could
Okay,
look up to some seniors who were already studying at ABC. There were people who were at Kozhikode, Indore, but none of them was at ABC. So I
right,
did not have an immediate role model. That made me believe that maybe it is very difficult for people from tier 2 colleges of sorts to get into ABC. But later on, I realized that it is just a myth. It all depends on your merit, how well you score in your CAT exam, and how well you fare in your interviews. So there is criteria for selection at every stage, for work experience, for your 10th, 12th grades and undergrad scores, and then finally percentile. And after that, you're selected for the interviews, and then interviews and written ability tests. So nowhere do they have any criteria for the
right,
ranking of your college. So I would
correct.
say this is just a myth. And if anybody thinks they are not from a very well known college, so they cannot make it, I think that you have just been fed the wrong information. Uh, CAT does not say anything like that. And if I can, then anybody can.
Excellent. That is very inspiring, and I'm sure it motivates a lot of CAT aspirants. And thank you so much, Nishtha. Thank you very much for giving us such valuable insights, and thanks a lot, and all the very best for your MBA journey at IIM Bangalore.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad I got this opportunity to share my journey, and TrackQ has played an indispensable part, specifically with the daily targets and also the very accurate call and percentile predictors.
Yeah, thanks, and all the best.